Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, collectors of all ages, welcome back to AussieVerse live chat number 20. If you are new to the channel, please like, subscribe so that we can get to that 400 subscriber giveaway where one lucky viewer will be getting a $100 Amazon gift card. Ideas for shows, comments, thoughts. If you're not going to put your comments down in the YouTube, hit us up at Instagram, where you can check us out right here, AussieVerse _Comx _collectors, where you can also hit up our graphic designer that does all the thumbnails and editing, A51 Designs. How are you, boys?
Good. 20 episodes, so we're 5 episodes off quarter of a century.
Yeah.
So we're getting there.
We are getting there slowly but surely. And for those watching at home, it is not just the AussieVerse family here today. We are joined by two comic Australian creators. One we have had on the show. We have been blessed by his presence a couple of times, Mr. Rob Spency Lisle, and one brand new member to the AussieVerse. Here he is, Scott Wilson. Yay!
Awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thanks for
If you
having
want
us.
to see these guys, you can hit them up right here for Spency on Instagram and right here for Scott Wilson. That will be in the comments. Don't rush to write it down.
Screenshot. I went down around. I was trying to. What's cracking?
What's cracking indeed? Scott,
Yeah.
tell the world about yourself for those who don't know who you are.
Absolutely. Oh, where do I start? I think I'd like to just start by acknowledging our deadly First Nations peoples here as a First Nations person from the northwest of Western Australia, but I'm currently on Eora Nation. So I'd like to say Nganyingara, Eora. Nganyingara, Eora, Thangandi, Ngamuningi, Yaningi, Jajaningi, Jamanjiningi. I recognize the Eora language and the people that are here in Sydney at the moment, and I also extend acknowledgement to the elders past and present when I say Jamanjiningi, Joguningi, talking about the elders. And when I say Ngamuningi, Yaningi, I mean from before that still exists here today. And I'm just so blessed that we can share the culture and continue the growth and the continuation of sharing and protecting it. And so I am, I just say, Ngani Gili Guniindi Yulu. I'm a man from the Guniindi people, which is from the northwest of Western Australia. I'm currently on the absolute opposite side of the country, just recovering from a big weekend at Oz Comic Con. And it was just absolutely dream come true. First Oz Comic Con, bringing the Indigiverse to camera, sharing it with all the deadly people there, and the reception was absolutely deadly. There's so many deadly people out there just getting behind it, getting on that Indigiverse journey, and yeah, we're just so blessed to have such deadly supported people. But I'm also, so I'm a creator, writer of the Indigiverse, alongside some really awesome, spectacular people, because it takes a community to raise a baby. And so I'd like to just shout out to my deadly team at the moment. So Katie Hollywood, Houghton Ward, who has just blessed us with her magical illustrations that has brought Dark Art, from vision to reality. And then Justin Randall, who has just taken the colors and just completely just taken us on this huge journey into the dreaming. And then also Benny Egmalies, and also the wonderful Wolfgang Bilsma. That's me in a nutshell. And I'm so glad to be on here with OmniBeau and just a part of the AussieVerse and joining you here tonight. So thank you.
Good on you, mate. Good on you.
Great.
So tell people a bit more about this Indigiverse. It might be the first time people have heard that word.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the Indigiverse is the first Aboriginal superhero universe in history. And although there has been superheroes that come out inspired by First Nations stories, this is the first that has been completely First Nations led, as well as, within our own very universe, which is now the Indigiverse. And so we have introduced and shared with people the dark art and the entry into the Indigiverse at Supernova earlier this year, and then now Camrose Comic Con. But dark art is just the tip of the iceberg in regards to this whole universe that I've been writing for the last 5 years, 10 years, and so it's just been such a journey to bring it together. And so we're moving into 5 superheroes that I have written and started in terms of their origin stories, and I'm still tossing up where to throw people into the world yet, especially with a lot of those new superheroes like our female superhero Dreamwalker, which will be coming out very soon, and our issue 2 coming out next month, and we'll be revealing that at Sydney Comic Con and sharing that with the world. And we'll also have Katie there joining us. So funny enough, funny story is that we sold out on our limited edition dark art copies, but no one in the world yet, even me, not even me, has had Katie sign it yet. She's the only autograph missing. So I am going to be chasing down Katie myself to make sure that she signs one of my copies. And so, really looking forward to the next few months, and then also revealing our next few superheroes, which is going to be just, I like to call it a movement, a revolution in the way of sharing our culture for the first time through this medium, because the stories that we have, right, have not been shared in this way before, especially in comic books. And it's not mythological beings. These are stories of things that go bump in the night that we still see and experience and hear stories about now. And that's all what the dreaming is what's happening right now, everything coexisting at once. And so when you read the book, I want you to go on that journey into the dreaming and into an understanding of our First Nations culture that is about everyone. It's about, you and I. It's about our identity as Australians. Our First Nations culture should be shared and also supported in its protection and preservation. And so now we get to celebrate it through comics.
100%.
In a nutshell.
That's awesome, man, because I do think it's a very cultural thing that hasn't been really tapped into, and there is just a big history, rich history of it, and there's so much there. So it's awesome. This in comic book form would be great because it gets a way out there for people to enjoy and love, as well as a comic book community. So when you're doing this, how much sort of research, or is this just closer to your heart that you already knew, or what is your process doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So a lot of these stories I grew up with, shared by my elders and my people and my mom and dad and my family and in community. And a lot of that inspiration has come from that. And one of the biggest things that we always have to do is that consultation and making sure that our people are, happy with the representation and the sharing of these stories. And one of the biggest things that we had to make sure was the language, and making sure that the language was correct, so that I was speaking my language, learning it bit by bit. And everyone's on that journey of, learning the language, especially for our people. But I really wanted to get it right. So all the ancestral beings in here, they wouldn't be speaking English. I'd be like, oh, that's weird. That's correct pronunciation by an ancestral being that's never met, an English person in his life, and so, so I had to make it in that sense authentic in the way of how the language is spoken within the books. And so I have been supported by my community and my elders to bring this to life in the sense of sharing and protecting our language. So every book will have, as you see in the back there, on this side here, a glossary. There we go. A glossary, as well as information about where the actual stories and language is come from. So we have a superhero called the Outcast, and the Outcast representing the more so people that have been taken away through the stolen generations. But there's so much stories that we base it up in the Queensland, and my business partner and the co-creator of the Indigiverse, he's from there, that side of the country. And so as the resources come in, we'll be able to have more flexibility to be able to go and say, okay, we want to work with the people, make sure we get it right, that consultation is there, and everyone is a part of that journey of preserving and protecting, alongside celebrating it. And I think I coined the term, it's informative entertainment, and so while we're getting entertained, we're still being informed by a lot of the stories. So even though I don't hit you in your face with a lot of our history, it is within the story, symbolically, subliminally, and I hope that when people read it, they can actually start to see the tricky little things that I've put in the story, just to get people thinking and going on that journey.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's pretty,
Yeah, awesome, man.
Yeah, brother. Yeah. So, no, really excited, and I can't wait. Yeah.
All right, Rob, let's bring it.
Rob.
What? No.
Straight up, mate. Straight up after that. It's like you sleep and then you sleep. Come on.
Yeah, so I do a book about a toilet. The ever culturally relevant bloody Devil's Toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. God, this is like asking buddy. I don't know. Captain America just gave a speech, and then you turn to Rocket Raccoon and tell him to talk. It's like, no. Yes, I don't know. I make comics. I do this book. This one's a little bit more deals with topics, I guess. It's depression, anxiety, and slugs. And so, yeah, I just spent a weekend, just like Scott, but down here in Melbourne, we had 2 conventions on. And so I've spent 2 days spruiking these things. And this one's my sort of better seller because I'm finding as soon as you mention the word depression, people sort of go, hey, I know something about that. And they take a second look. And as soon as the sort of the selling image is, look at that poor guy. He can't even go a shower, the little dude. So, yeah, I mean, I do silly books about a toilet that escaped from hell and accidentally brought the apocalypse to Earth, sorry. And then team up with a bunch of other misfits, like a turtle detective from the 1800s in London's East End, who was just had Jack the Ripper in his grasp, but was pulled into the future to stave off the apocalypse.
I do have to say, is that a monocle? That's a monocle, yeah.
That is a monocle, yeah.
And a top hat. Like it.
Yeah, when designing characters, you should draw them on all angles before committing to the final design, because I can only draw this guy from this purview. When you try to draw how do you draw the side of a monocle? It's So I learned by doing 22 pages of awkward poses with this guy. Check it out. Yeah, that's kind of me. I'm a musician, singer-songwriter, turned novelist, then turned comic book writer. Yeah, that's it. That's me in a nutshell. Not quite a nutshell, but it's a shell of sorts.
Oh, if it makes you feel any better, that is going to have me pissing myself for the next week. That was absolutely hilarious.
So for someone like myself who's not had a copy of any of those, where can I get them?
Scott, you go.
Oh, okay. No worries. Yeah, Sharif, brother, you can get them online. So Digiverse.au is our website. We also have a Kickstarter, but that just ended just then. But in Digiverse.au, but there's also a publisher, not for profit, that have just become a publisher, and so they've also bought about 750 copies from us to sell on their website as well, called Fish. And so you can check them out. They're the Foundation for Indigenous Sustainable Health, and they also have retail stores in the Southwest, if anyone's in Perth, and at the airports there. So they'll soon be expanding to airports across Australia and those kind of things. But in the very near future, those books will be sold physically there in the first kind of retail aspect. But online at the moment is kind of currently where, or come to Oz Comic Con Sydney. So if in the near future, so September 24th, 25th, we will be there selling issue 1 and issue 2.
Will you be coming up to Brisbane? Because we're gonna get it first.
Yeah, that is a very yeah. So I've been pressured to come to Brisbane. So we're just working on just family stuff, just making sure that because it's back to back. A lot of our Avengers Assemble, like our team has just working out who's going to be there, who can come there. But definitely want to get to Brisbane, get to Eat Street, and yeah. Nah, absolutely.
Because believe it or not, I've missed a couple of years worth of con, and by golly, this year,
Absolutely.
gonna get those tickets.
Now, Spetsy,
yeah, I don't know why I set myself up to follow you again, but yeah. So my books you can get at my website. It's called psychogenitor.com. Thanks, Nick. Nick and I do a book together called Vamoose, and I didn't prepare a copy to hold up. So just imagine it's here. Bo, if you could superimpose it in later in the edit.
Post.
Yeah. Psychogenitor.com is where you can get all my books that I write and draw. But then over at Reverie Publications, you'll find the books that I write and don't draw. There's books like this one, Larrikin and Just. It's a time travel sort of story. And then there's a Western called Rick McClune.
Too slow.
And a superhero book called Torn. It's like a whole universe created by Gary Della that I get to play in sometimes. So they're available at reveriepublications.com.au. And then bits and pieces of all my stuff is available with Sizzle at comx.shop. And I'm at Spedsy on all social medias.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, I had a question for you there, Speds.
Yeah, man.
It's a really deep dive into the bottom of your soul. No. So I wanted to, because there's a lot of stuff like that I stumble across in terms of stories of characters, and I wanted to know what was your kind of interesting origin story of the creation of Sluggish or the Devil Toilet, and I would love to hear that, because a lot of people actually get to that point of realizing a vision, but then they just don't actually end up either putting it on paper, or they don't believe they can create it and those kind of things. So I'd love to hear that story, if there is one. Or
I guess there is. So that I was raised Catholic, so I've always and then in my 20s, late 20s, kind of struggled with the idea of it all and faith and whatever, which had me revisit a character of mine, the Devil's Toilet, that I came up with in my late teens, which was, it just started from doubting my ability to draw. I was drawing human characters, and it was just, I wasn't as good at it as I wanted to be. So Nick May, who was Comx, just popped up. He had a character called Baghead, which was a guy who wore a tucker bag, like a brown paper bag on his head, and it was a square with eyes. And I just thought that was genius, because if you have to do 22 pages of a character, make it a square with eyes. So I drew a character called Baghead. No, wait, what did I say his was called? Did I say Baghead?
Yeah, you said Baghead.
His was called reply in the comments, Nick. I suddenly just can't remember what his was called, because I ripped it off and called mine Baghead. Paperface. His was called Paperface. Sorry. Yeah. So this is when I was younger, if I saw something I liked, I would try to emulate it. / rip it off. Anyway, so this square with eyes then became, well, what starts as a square, draw a circle underneath it. Suddenly I had a toilet. And then the Catholicism stuff just started creeping in. I was like, the Devil's Toilet. And then just piecing that story together in my head. So spoiler alert, the it's a toilet that becomes sentient in the pits of hell. He essentially doesn't want to be in hell, like most people there, I guess. And another like demon who lives down there also was born and bred to maim and torture, but he had a soft heart, and he didn't like that, and he happened to go to the bathroom and was lamenting his lot in life when the Devil's Toilet came to life, and together they plotted their escape. Now, how does one escape from hell? Well, the devil ended up letting them escape because, God has, in my little universe, you can't just walk out of hell unless you find a loophole or a poop hole. And the Devil's Toilet serves as a portal for the devil to come to Earth. All of it is very ridiculous. Something I say a lot is that I write novels that are serious, and then I draw and write these stories that are silly, because I thought for the longest time my silly cartoons couldn't accompany serious stories. I don't know why. That was just something that was in my head. I was inspired by The Simpsons and stuff like that. Until my brother sort of said to me, man, if it was written well enough, you can make people feel something about stick figures. And I was sort of like, oh, that's and you think of like memes and stuff that you've seen where like they're the simplest drawings, but then they can hit you right in the chest sometimes. And that's where Sluggish was kind of born, where I tried to incorporate my serious writing into my silly cartoons. And it's become the book that I've got more compliments about Sluggish, which is only like a couple months old, than the multiple years I've put into the Devil's Toilet. And so Sluggish came from, we do a show called Drink and Draw on Friday nights, and in the post show we just hang out and we talk and we draw and whatever. And I was playing around with this slug idea. I had sort of no plans for him, other than he looked sad. And then I started thinking about my journey with depression and anxiety and stuff, and it just felt like a cool thing to exercise those demons a little bit. And something I've been saying all weekend, like I couldn't help but pepper it with jokes, because I dare not tell people exactly how I feel. So you have to like add some levity so that, your heart's not totally on your sleeve. But it's amazing how many people have connected with like people who I had no idea were struggling in some sort of way. I've gotten very heartfelt compliments saying, holy moly, you just somehow did an autobiography on me. I feel exactly the way he does, and all that sort of stuff. So it's been a very eye-opening, interesting, and fun book to put together. And that's kind of the story, I think.
That's awesome.
Has it been like therapeutic when you put pen to paper?
What's that? Sorry, Sharif, I missed the first part.
What was it like therapeutic that you put all of that into your work?
Yes, it was. And to sort of reiterate in a way, like it was made me feel good. I put a disclaimer in the front. I'll just read it to you because I didn't want the book to be taken the wrong way. So it says, mental illness is a real bitch. It can present itself in a number of ways and vary so much from person to person. One's coping mechanism can be another's trigger. Within these pages, I poke fun at it. I'm not making light of your struggle. I'm ragging on my own. It makes me feel better. Brains are weird. Let me introduce you to Herbs. And Herb is the slogan.
That's so good, brother.
And the amount of people who have identified with it, it made me feel less alone and less weird. So maybe we're all weird. We're all a bunch of weirdos.
So it's not a bad idea to sort of bring something like that to life with a bit of humor as well, so it gets people to enjoy and embrace some hard struggles that they go through in a bit of fun of light, I guess, to
Yeah,
say
yeah.
in a way, but also realise the problem as well in the same light. So that is interesting, and I'm glad that you put something like out there like that, because some people are struggling, and if the darker you go with it, the more people might not want to speak out about it or whatever.
Yeah.
Everybody, as you said, everybody's different. I guess, as you were saying, a Simpsons fan.
Yep.
So Matt Grogan, who writes that, he did a few emotional episodes in Futurama. So that sort of
Right.
he put his emotional, not everything, but the same sort of thing. It was a bit of funny but emotional as well. So
yeah, I've not watched much Futurama, but I have seen some of that, like the dog waiting for fry and stuff. I'm just like, anything with animals. The worst thing I could have done, and it's also the best thing, but I never had a pet growing up, and then 10 years ago, me and my wife got a dog, and like I liked animals, but now I can't even watch a documentary where there's the lions chasing the zebra, and I'm like, no, run, zebra, run. Now it's just like all the feels when you just see. I can't watch a movie where there's a dog in it, because the whole time I'm just like, the dog's gonna die. It's gonna be a character building moment for the protagonist. But what about the dog?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please stay away from Marley and me.
Spoiler alert! The secret's just called Marley.
If they put the dog on the poster, you know you're in trouble. You can't watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely brilliant. Sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was going to say I got a question for you, Scott.
Oh yeah, cheers, bud.
So when you're writing in AussieVerse and stuff like that, and you're creating a character, do you think of the character first and then write the story, or do you have a story and then sort of incorporate the character? What sort of strategy do you have?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think simultaneously at most times it's like a bit of both. I have a character in mind that kind of like in my head I have to get down on paper and I draw it. And so I have this little like Bible that I've given over to Katie in terms of every character that I've drawn, and just like, and I put it's just on PowerPoint that I've just put in and been like, yep, this is what the character is, who they are. They kind of link to the universe. And so it's just been going like that. But then there's times where I've give a story and I've just let it like ferment in my head, because sometimes it's like letting it breathe before I tell anyone or before I start writing it down, because there's like, I feel like maybe there's missing pieces, and then next minute there's ones that just come, and I have a character that's just like has its own story already. It's like the universe has like gift wrapped this awesome story to me, and I've just been like a little kid on Christmas, just ripping it apart and just being like, oh my God, I got to get this down. Like I come up with this character on the plane, and I'm like, oh shit. And so I started drawing it on the plane, and then by the time I landed, I had the backstory, I had everything. And it was just like, wow, now to get back on track. But funny enough, a lot of talking to people as well. So one of the main antagonist characters in Dark Heart that you see in the book, but he's kind of like the Thanos kind of planet destroying kind of antagonist that is like behind the scenes. So he'll come in the first few issues and then it'll disappear, but we know it's alluding to that he's up to mischief. He's got some plan. So the character came from a homeless guy that I met at Redfern Station, like about I think it was 5 years ago. And and he told me this awesome story, crazy story. And then he told me, oh, you will never see me again. I'm going to go now. And I've never seen him again in my life. And I'm like, what is happening? And so the story there, if I share with you guys, spoiler, no spoilers. But he told me, right, and we were yarning, and because I was yarning too, there's a few mob that always there, homeless mob, and I give them food, or like I give them some cash or whatever food I have on me. I actually used to just buy extra food as I walk past. I'll just give them. And he had one big fella. He was huge, and he had the lightest skin, but he was, he told me that he was like an albino, basically, in the sense of light skin, blonde hair. And he told me that he was the last descendant of the pure blood Aboriginals from Northern Territory. And he had been sent to Redfern to meet his promised wife. So when I say promised wife, it's we get promised like wives through our skin. So our skin to continue who we can actually marry. And so apparently his promised skin wife was in Redfern, and he went to go and see her. But she had already had children with all these people, so he couldn't pass the bloodline down. And then he told me, see those, and this is where the drama kicked in, and there was clouds rumbling over Sydney, the city. And he said, see that? That's the rainbow serpent coming to, because he's angry. And then he said, I got to go now, and you will never see me again. And so hence the creation of the leader of the pure blood order, which I go through in my storyline. And I was like, wow, I don't know if it was like a demigod or something that just like appeared there and just needed to share with me this story. And from there it evolved, and now we have one of the main antagonists for the Indigiverse.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it doesn't daunt you creating multiple characters from the get-go? Because I'd find that scary, creating. Usually you'd stick with like 1, 2, How's that going?
Yeah, no. So I had built like every day. I'm like thinking like the only time I don't like think, and you guys would all probably feel the same, is when I play games or watching movies, and so that's the only time I stop thinking. And so every day I'm on the car, I'm in the bus, or anywhere. I am all these stories thing, and no matter what, like 10 years have gone past, and the stories have stayed the same in my head. They had never changed or differed or strayed away. And so it was like, it was given to me to bring to reality. And so even all the stories of different characters that come along, and it was like I was meeting them in this kind of split personality kind of thing way. But like, it was like I was meeting this character, having conversations with them. And it was just this, it's crazy. And I've spent a lot of time alone. Just writing. And my auntie I did a radio interview with ABC, and she was like, so that's what you've been doing in your room. Yeah, just like, oh, I get it now. And so
you're not going to hell.
Yeah.
I know a way out. If you do go to hell, I know a way out. So just
I got a story. I got a question, Spetsy, because the toilet left. Does the devil ever take a shit or take a poo?
Yeah. Well, that's I know. Yeah. So it's the devil's toilet. I've never actually addressed if it's like the actual devil's ensuite, like his personal toilet.
Yeah.
It's just like a toilet in hell. On the first page, when you enter hell, I don't know if you know this. They punish you in relation to what you've done. So like on the first page, they say to a guy, you've been thinking impure thoughts. So they take his brain out and they throw it in a hole. And then the next guy, you've been touching things you shouldn't. So they rip his arms off and throw those in it. So the arms and the brain they just ripped out just happened to fall next to the toilet, who then... Now he's got arms, and it's very, very complex origin story. Like a whole page to describe how it happened. But Scott, I wanted to ask you: is there a world in which, like in 10 years' time, there is like 15 Indigiverse titles, and you're like the Kevin Feige of the Indigiverse? You're like overseeing all these writers and artists creating this whole big thing.
I can say with complete certainty, and because I like at night I travel through time, so and so no, I absolutely believe that it'll get to a point where it has to be like that. So like I think that's what the foundation is being built right now. For then our stories to end the Indigiverse. So the whole point of the Indigiverse was that our people could be protected and can share their stories in a way where they don't have to sign their soul away in terms of any standardization of, authorship or anything like that Australia has, in terms of percentages and those kind of things, and IP and cultural IP and those kind of things. And so I wanted it to be a safe space where, we can bring people on who want to tell stories that come under the Indigiverse. They can, and we can support that capacity being built. But there's definitely going to be, in 10 years' time, I know this for a very long time, that this was always meant to be created, and so when we look at DC, Marvel, I do believe that in the future there's going to be Indigiverse there. And so in terms of the commercialization of it, we're looking at like figurines at the moment. So looking and talking to people around figurines, pop and like looking at how we can incorporate those kind of things, from merchandise like Kmart and those other places. We wanted to have a whole spread, much like when you go to New Zealand, where you see culture like just flourishing in the sense of everyone is a part of it. I feel like the Indigiverse was always wanting to improve how we, integrate Aboriginal culture into everything that we do here in Australia. And it's just a piece to the puzzle, because there's so much people, fashion, from music, from, business ownership, that are doing such great work out there at the moment. And so it's all pieces to the puzzle to have where we can't move. Like we can't move without being, exposed or seeing Aboriginal culture celebrated, and for all Australians to feel comfortable to be a part of it as their own identity as well as Australians. But in your question, just to answer that fully, yes, there is going to be multiple people, I hope, that want to come on the Indigiverse journey and tell the stories and continue the stories, because I've written it in the sense of like insects that I've developed, like that's how, to the real detail. And in this next one, we go into that, like the dreaming. I thought dreaming has these like atmospheric, like particles and organisms and all those kind of things that I really wanted to explore, and those kind of things, especially when it comes to time, space, and the endless possibilities that comes with all of those concepts, and the realities as well. So it is an ecosystem that I hope to build today.
What were the other names you were kicking around before you settled on Indigiverse? Were there some like horrible ones where you were just like, nah? Or was there was there another top contender? Because it's a pretty awesome name.
Yeah. No, I was going to go with Blackverse. No, I'm kidding. It was so at the beginning about 4 years ago, I got together with a few deadly animators and writers here in Marrickville in Sydney, and I called it. We got a photo of all of us that hide out this place, and I called it in the background the Aboriginal Superhero Universe. And it wasn't until recent, like in the last 2 years, an animator by the name of Molly Hunt, who's self-taught. She's absolutely amazing. She's doing a lot of work here and there. She worked for ABC, but now is doing a lot of her own stuff. And she's like, "You're creating the Indigiverse," and I'm like, "What? Yeah, that's what I'm creating." But I did, and then I'm like, "Oh my God, you just named what this is!" Like, and so it took Molly Hunt to really like capture it in one word, and from there it was just like, this is it. Like,
did she then say, "And now you will never see me again"? And then like another demigod came down, gave you a gift, and then
that was a good callback, I gotta say.
These people just vanish off into the clouds as well.
No, definitely. No, I haven't seen her since. But I definitely will have to, if she's listening or sees this, I definitely have to get her a few rounds at the pub. Hopefully she's back in WA. But like Homer Simpson.
Around, and a little contract that says she will not come asking for money when movies are $1 billion franchise.
Absolutely. She's lining me up for a role. She's been writing this television series, and so she wanted me to be this character. So I said, We'll just meet in the middle. Nah, I'll do it for free. Nah.
I don't even know what the part is, but you will smash it.
Yeah. Yeah, cheers, brother. Yeah.
So have you guys ever actually worked together?
No, we only met on Drink and Draw a couple episodes ago.
Well,
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure how a white dude that writes about toilets would fit in the Indigiverse, but I'm up for anything.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, funny enough, so I have developed like 3 animations that when I saw the Devil's Toilet and Sluggish, it like the style was absolutely going down that that way, and I'd love to share some of those stories because instead of getting into animation first, which we started here in Sydney actually, and we had Hunter Page and Maine Wyatt and Sean Chilbra all voicing the characters of this animation that I had written, and then COVID-19 just killed us, and so I had to take a step back, and then but it's still there. But there's 3 that I'd love to throw in terms of your interest, and definitely.
Mate, yeah, I'm down. Holy moly, I'd love to. I am just going to send you a contract now, just in case this becomes a billionaire. Everyone you're not getting any money. No, I mean, I'll have my people talk to your people, but yeah, I'm down for it. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm his people.
Yeah.
Oh well,
he's busy. Sorry.
Yeah, this is where babies are made. No, absolutely.
So, are you guys? Rob, I already know yourself, but Scott, are you more Marvel or DC?
Oh, that's a good controversial question to ask. Now, I was definitely Marvel, hands down, from the very beginning. Although I do have a huge collection of DC Superman comics, and but Marvel definitely with Spider-Man as well. The other week with Comx, Drink and Draw. Definitely Marvel. There's something about the colors and the thing that just really captivated me. There's this balance of all those things, and I think when I went into visualizing the Indigiverse, I really wanted to take on that, making sure that if we're talking about dark things, to bring the bright colors and those kind of things. So, yeah.
Fair enough. And if you both of you could pick a character to come into your worlds, who would it be?
Oh, I might handball that to you first, and then
I would pick. Well, I would pick Ghost Rider because, in the Devil's Toilet universe, Ghost Rider could fit, but I also would. Ghost Rider would be a pain in the butt to draw.
Yes.
It's like Howard the Duck would be easy to draw. I like Ghost Rider. I think I think I would have to suck it up and learn how to draw him, because Ghost Rider, with the whole hell vibe and everything, it would be cool. And now I'm just pitching it, but then with the Devil's Toilet, I'm just picturing the Ghost Rider riding around in the bowl. I don't know how bigger or Ghost Rider got smaller, but there was a recent Ghost Rider series in the last 5 years or so, where Johnny Blaze was having to go round and round on this track on his bike, and that's just the visual I can see. And I'm just there's a story there. Let me write it. Marvel, are you watching? Tom Brevoort?
When it flushes, does it go clockwise or anti-clockwise?
Depending on where you are.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'll write that down.
For me, I reckon, because of the storyline, and I always wanted to kind of show kind of the dreaming, in the sense of the first kind of instance or first kind of discovery of it, linked to Doctor Strange. So when one of the things was when he's playing with time and all those things that is, and kind of the laws of time, where you'll create all these multiverses and those kind of things. I had to really deal with that with the story of our elder protectors traveling through space and time within the dreaming, and actually stopping the deaths of a lot of these, tourists that are just camping in like spots they shouldn't be camping, and would otherwise, if they weren't there, get killed by our ancestral beings. But our elder protectors actually stop that. And so, but they stop it in this way where you will never know that you were saved by an elder protector. But how I explained it, much like with Doctor Strange, is that he was always meant to save them. So he would have created a multiverse if he did not save them. You know what I mean? So I was trying to think, but Doctor Strange would definitely come into it when we're playing around with that, and astral projection, and those kind of things, and explaining it from both ends of Doctor Strange, but then how that is linked to the dreaming. Yeah.
I would have thought Sandman, actually.
Yeah.
Sandman universe, yeah. Because they've got their own dream.
That's true. Yeah. That's it. That's interesting.
I thought you meant the Spider-Man villain at first.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
An odd choice, Bo, but
no, but honestly, it is so weird when watching even like the rendition like on TV, and them talking about the dreaming. And I'm like, oh, it's just so weird. I'm like, like, is it talking about the dreaming or the dreaming?
I actually feel kind of cheated by when we were kids. We were taught about the rainbow serpent, and that was kind of it. And then you're dropping these little nuggets about these ancient elders that are protecting people, and I'm instantly fascinated. And I'm like, where were these stories when why didn't they teach us this stuff? It's fascinating.
Yeah, well, so a lot of this is like a fictional universe inspired by a lot of the stories from that I grew up with. And as we go along the piece of the puzzle that is Australia when it comes to First Nations peoples, we can go in and actually get different parts. So one of the brilliant things of our stories is that as you travel nomadically, that's how you learn the stories. So one language group has a part of it. So if you were going through as men, going through learning the stories, you would have to travel and each way pick up a piece of the story. And so that was the whole kind of journey of it all. So it wasn't like, we had all the stories, they had different stories. No, some had actually different parts to it. And so especially with the serpent, like with the Galaroo, so that's Galaroo. And in my language, that's our dreaming rainbow serpent. There's different names for serpent across Australia, but there are other megafauna that are similar like that, and now they're bringing up actual archaeological findings of bones. And funny enough, they had a Joe Rogan podcast recently, and they carbon dated bones that they found in the Amazon, and they were 10,000 years old. And guess where those bones, the DNA was from?
Australia,
all the way in the Amazon. And when it predated people traveling over that distance of water, so there's a lot of room there for speculation around how, like, portals and things of astral projection and moving around, and how all these things. So there's so much opportunity and so much thing to share stories that things that we tend to think is fictional, but have this huge non-fictional element, and I think it's just interesting, and it needs to be told because
hell yeah. I've got Walt Disney online too. I'm going to sort out a deal for you. We need to get a multi-picture deal. Just let's get this cracking. This is.
I thought Moana was good.
Yeah.
Line 2. You still have a landline there?
Yeah. Oh.
You pick up on that aspect, not the fact that Walt Disney's actually dead. The line 2 aspect was what threw you.
There's actually funny. There's so much there's a link, and I have the Outcast has a huge between us. Hopefully, no one's listening. Is that there's a huge Nazi German kind of pieces to the puzzle that have been linked to Australia through stories that were told by my elders in Northern Territory as well, where Nazi German pilots actually tried to fly across the span of the planet and crash landed in Northern Territory. And the Aboriginal people there actually saved them. And there's actually a reenactment DVD that I have. Nazi Germany, so the Third Reich and Hitler sent a gift to the Aboriginal people, and they have that gift in a museum in the Southwest, and it was an organ, and apparently there's a inscription on it saying from Hitler or from the Third Reich to the Aboriginal people of Australia. And so there's all these different, and there's other conspiracies that I've been playing with that. When you read The Outcast, it explains all of those little conspiracies that I had that may or may not be true. Yeah.
Listening to how much how much stories Scott might have.
Yeah.
I'm just looking forward to issue 50.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a connection I never thought I would ever hear.
Yeah.
I'm just blown away by that. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I have to pull out my DVD player to watch it though. So so there's a reenactment. My uncle was one of the actors in the reenactment, and so he shared that with me. And so, yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to bounce off Beau's question before, there is a series out at DC at the moment, and it's called One Bad Day. It's a Batman one.
Oh, yeah.
So it's coming out every month, and there's going to be a different team every month, just making a 60-page story of a Batman villain. They're going to push Batman to the absolute limit, and so they've got amazing creative teams, and it's kind of like a competition. And they've all gotten. There's a Riddler one. Next month is Two-Face. Then you got Penguin, and then you got Mr. Freeze, Clayface, Catwoman,
Raj, by any chance?
and then you got Ra's al Ghul, which Tom Taylor's doing that one. And
awesome.
You got some pretty big names out there, and it seems like it's a bit of a competition between them. You got 60 pages to write your story of how this villain's going to push him to the absolute limit. Now, my question is to use, which villain would you choose? Let's say Batman and Spider-Man. All of yous. Go for you first, Rob.
Spider-Man, if I would write a Hobgoblin story,
Nice.
and it would, if I was trying to push Spider-Man to the limits, I would maybe do it as a Hobgoblin sick of being seen as the diet version of Green Goblin. And trying to make a name for himself, and maybe redo some of Green Goblin's classic sort of attempts at Spider-Man, but correct the mistakes that Green Goblin made. And then maybe like the penultimate scene is Mary Jane on the bridge, and he has a foolproof plan to carry out what he did, what Green Goblin did to Gwen Stacy, and destroy Spider-Man physically and mentally. And I'm just spitballing, but that's where I would kind of like to play.
It's a very good start. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Ooh, that's yeah, that is
I
a
would
pretty
do the exact same thing that Rob just said, but better, and change it to Demo Goblin and steal his idea.
You'd pick the ventriloquist, though, wouldn't you, Bo, for a Batman villain, wouldn't you?
Yeah, man. If it was Batman, ventriloquist. Yep, absolutely.
Oh,
Seriously, you could make the creepiest goddamn book with that one.
Oh, how could ventriloquist push Batman to the limit?
Oh, all you got to do is like get a little Robin doll and a Joker one.
oh, that's yeah.
Batman.
And a little crowbar in Joker's hand.
Yeah, exactly, right?
That's
Not again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for some reason, what really captivated me with kind of like a lot of villains, like obviously misunderstood, and I would love to go down that lines of like going into Joker, but Venom in the sense of for because there's this thing of like because when I love exploring good and evil within one kind of character, and although like I've originally come across Venom with Spider-Man in that sense of evilness, but then I guess with the current showing with Tom Hardy and that in that sense of the whole good. But I always had the character like being good, and then I guess obviously Venom as a parasite being like bad. But how can you within that character like try to trick it in the sense of stopping it from doing what it needs to do? You know what I mean? Because in my thing, my superhero, so just a spoiler, is I wanted to go into that dark side of what the character, because of the breakdown of morals and values and those kind of things through a huge traumatic experience. But then it's the coming back from that. So to completely lose someone and then or lose yourself and then come back in that sense of destroying yourself for the greater good, like that sense, like I can't exist anymore because my existence is creating this chaotic universe, and to have that moral dilemma of either to stay alive and coexist with evil, or take us both out of the equation. And so I always had that in my head of that playing of the dilemma. It reminds me of Arnold Schwarzenegger in End of Days. I'm not sure if you guys watched that.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah, and in my head, I was at that thing of like Arnold Schwarzenegger, withholding, the demon inside of him to actually stop him by actually doing that thing at the end, which was absolutely
That's
awesome.
himself. Yeah. Awesome.
So, went around. So yeah.
You have one, Sharif?
No.
No.
I'm just blown away by how fast these writers can just come up with things in their head. Yeah.
Next week, Sharif comes on the show and he's like, "I've got this great idea for a story."
In 7 days, I've got it.
Can I share with you guys a crazy story? It was like that. So I went on the radio the other day, and the Aboriginal fella from Noongar Radio, awesome, Mark Patrick, and I'm throwing this out in the cosmos. He described me of a superhero that he wants to create. And he named him and told me exactly what the superhero is. So he said this whole awesome description of the superhero, and then he said, and I named it Manifold. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Manifold.
Is it the X-Men character called Manifold?
Yeah, X-Men, yeah. The First Nations character. And so he started sharing that story back in the 70s or something about when he was out, and he was like sharing it to everyone. And then I told him, I was like, there is a thing out there already named Manifold, and when you described it, I'm like, yeah, that's the character and that's his powers. And so and he described to me why he called it Manifold and the definition. I was like, Manifold came out in I think like 2009, and I was like, someone listened to you and completely took your story. Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a lesson then. No more free Hobgoblin pitches from me.
Get it close to heart.
The next one, Tom Brevoort. Come at me.
And with that, we'll close it off. I think it's a good time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having us, guys.
Rob,
I think it's
Scott,
our pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. It was great to have you on here. This went a lot better than I could have hoped. I had one bit of comic book news this week, and I didn't even get to say it. So that's how good this was. I'll say it next week.
Awesome. Until next week on Aussie.
Yeah.
Before we go, Word from our sponsor, Comx.
This show is sponsored by the Comx shop. Check out comx.cx for all things Comx and find out what Comx is all about. Then head over to comx.shop to pick up a variety of Australian comics from multiple creators and publishers, all for one flat postage rate. And don't forget to check out the Comx channel on YouTube. We hope you enjoy the show.